My pregnant sister showed up at my apartment with no suitcase, no coat warm enough for the November rain, and an ultrasound picture folded so tightly in her hand that the corner had started to tear. The part that scared me was not that she was soaked, it was that she had already stopped crying. Brenna was 23, but under the hallway light, she looked like the little girl who used to run into my room during thunderstorms and ask if she could sleep on the floor. Only this time, she was not afraid of thunder. She was afraid of her parents. "My father said I am not his daughter anymore," she said. She said it so quietly I almost wished she had screamed. Then she looked past me into my apartment and said the part I would remember for the rest of my life. Mom opened the door for me. My name is Greer Holloway. I was 34 years old that night, an occupational therapist at Hawthorne County Medical Center in Briar Glen, Ohio. I thought my parents were strict. I thought they cared too much about what people thought. I thought every family had rules they were too proud to question. I did not know a family could sit through Sunday dinner, pass the green beans, fold the napkins, and still decide one daughter no longer belonged at the table. I did not ask Brenna who the father was, not while her hands were shaking, not while the ultrasound picture sat on my kitchen counter like the only witness that had made it out of that house with her. I wrapped her in a towel, turned up the heat, and asked if she had eaten. 4 hours earlier, we had been sitting at our parents' dining room table like nothing in that house had ever cracked. My father, Leland Holloway, sat at the head of the table in the blue button-down shirt he wore when he wanted people at Stonebridge Grace Church to remember he was a deacon. My mother, Maris, kept smoothing napkins that were already straight. Aunt Darla had brought rolls from the bakery. Wayne sat beside her, quiet as always, cutting butter into small squares like silence was a family chore. The food looked safe. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, dinner rolls. The kind of Sunday meal that made a house smell warmer than the people inside it. Brenna barely touched her plate. I noticed that before anyone else did. She had one hand in her lap and the other around her water glass. Her face looked bare. Brenna always wore mascara to dinner at our parents' house, even when she was mad at them. That night, she had come with nothing to hide behind. She put her fork down. "I am pregnant," she said, 18 weeks. The wall clock ticked above the hutch. Nobody asked if she was scared. Nobody asked if the baby was healthy. Nobody asked whether she had been to a doctor or whether she had eaten that morning. My father pushed his chair back. "Is there even a father?" Leyland asked. Brenna stared at her plate. That silence changed the room. It was not the silence of a girl who didn't know the answer. It was the silence of someone who knew the answer could make everything worse. My mother folded her napkin once, then again. Her hands were steady. "Who else knows?" Maris asked. That was when I felt something inside me go cold. Not "what do you need?" Not "are you safe?" Who else knows? Brenna whispered that nobody knew. Not really. Leland stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor and hit the wall behind him. He said she had made a mockery of everything they had built in Briar Glen, everything their name meant, everything people at Stonebridge Grace believed about our family. If you want to live like you have no family, then you can leave like you have no family. I was on my feet before I realized I had moved. "She is still your daughter." Maris turned toward me. Her face was calm, and that made it worse. "Not if she drags shame through our front door," she said. Then my mother walked to Brenna and took her wrist. The silver bracelet was thin, old, and polished for years of women touching it when they were nervous. It had belonged to our grandmother. Then it belonged to Maris. She gave it to Brenna at her high school graduation and said Holloway women stood together. That night, she used it to decide who still belonged. She unclasped it from Brenna's wrist and set it on the table beside her folded napkin. Brenna did not fight her. She did not pull back. She just sat there with a bare wrist and a face so still it made her look younger than 23. That was the moment I knew if I left my sister in that room, some part of her would never make it out. I grabbed her coat from the chair and her canvas tote from the hallway bench. "Come with me. I told her. Leland stood near the doorway, close enough to stop us, but he did not. His jaw moved once. No words came out. That was my father's gift. He could make silence feel like a decision someone else had forced on him. Darla murmured that everyone should calm down, but she did not stand. Wayne kept his eyes on his plate. Maris opened the front door. Not Leland. Maris. My father had said the words, but my mother gave them weather. As Brenna stepped outside, I looked back once. The silver bracelet lay on the kitchen counter near the napkins. The pot roast was still warm. The dining room still looked ready for dessert. My sister had just been removed from the family, and somehow the tables still looked perfect. Back in my apartment, Brenna sat on my sofa wrapped in a towel, one hand curved over the small swell of her stomach. She kept apologizing. Sorry for waking me, sorry for the wet floor, sorry for ruining my night, sorry for needing somewhere to go. I made toast because it was the fastest thing my hands knew how to do. You did not ruin anything, I told her. Something was already broken in that house. She looked at me then, and for 1 second I saw the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during storms because she said thunder sounded too much like Dad shutting cabinets. I slept badly that night. Brenna slept on the sofa under the quilt from my linen closet, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, the other still protecting the baby. At 6:15 the next morning, gray light seeped through the blinds. I was standing barefoot in the kitchen, trying to remember if I had enough eggs, when her phone lit up on the coffee table. I did not pick it up. I did not need to. The contact was saved only as RC. The message said, "Please tell me you did not believe what my father said." Brenna woke before I could look away. She grabbed the phone so fast the quilt slipped to the floor. Her face went white. I realized there was a reason she was more afraid of a name than she was of the rain. I waited for her to explain. She did not. So I did what I had done the night before. I gave her room to breathe. But as I stood in my kitchen, with rain still drying in the entryway and my sister's ultrasound curling at the edges beside the sink, I understood that Brenna had come to my door carrying not only a baby, a secret, and a broken family. She had come carrying a name she was too afraid to say out loud. And if I was going to protect her, I would have to find out who had made the truth feel more dangerous than being thrown into the rain. By Monday morning, the rain had stopped, but my apartment still smelled like wet wool and toast. Brenna was asleep on the sofa, curled on her side under the quilt from my linen closet. The ultrasound picture lay flat on the kitchen counter, drying under the weak gray light from the window. I stood at the table with my laptop open, a notebook beside it, and my bank app glowing on the screen. I had $12,640 in emergency savings. I also had $7,900 left on my car loan. I wrote everything down because numbers felt safer than feelings. Rent, electric, water, car insurance, groceries, gas, prenatal vitamins, doctor co-pays, maternity clothes, a crib someday, though I could not let myself think too far ahead. If I cut everything down to the bone and picked up extra shifts, I could keep us steady for maybe 6 or 7 months. That was before the baby came. From the bathroom, I heard Brenna throw up. I closed my eyes for 1 second, then called Drew Harlan at Hawthorne County Medical Center and asked if I could take Saturday shifts for a while. "You sure, Greer?" Drew asked. "You already cover more weekends than anyone else." I told him I was sure. He hesitated, then reminded me the lead occupational therapist position in Columbus was still open. Better pay, better title, a real step forward. He said my file was strong, and the salary bump would be close to 18%. I looked toward the bathroom door. The water was running. Brenna was trying to hide the sound, as if being sick in my apartment was another thing she had to apologize for. "I cannot leave Briar Glen right now," I told him. Drew did not press. That was one of the reasons I liked him. At 7:26, my mother called. I let it ring twice before answering because I needed those 2 rings to become someone who would not scream. "Bring your sister home before this becomes permanent," Maris said. She did not say good morning. She did not ask if Brenna had slept. She did not ask if the baby was all right. Permanent? I asked. Do you mean the baby or the fact that you opened the door and sent your daughter into the rain? Her breathing changed. Do not be cruel, Greer. Your sister needs to come home. Apologize to your father, apologize to this family, and make this right before everyone hears a version we cannot control. There it was. Not before she gets hurt, not before she feels alone, before everyone hears. Are you planning to apologize to her? Silence. Then my mother said, Your father has barely spoken all morning. After she hung up, Leland sent a text. Your mother has cried all morning. I stared at it for a long time. It was not concern. It was a bill someone expected me to pay. I did not answer. The next few days became a list of small emergencies. I drove Brenna to an OB clinic. I bought prenatal vitamins, ginger tea, saltines, a second toothbrush, and towels from the clearance shelf at Target. I cleared 2 drawers in my dresser and pushed my winter coats to one side of the closet so she could hang 3 sweaters. Brenna apologized for everything. Sorry about the bathroom. Sorry about the couch. Sorry about your schedule. Sorry about being here. One morning while I was making oatmeal, she said, I can find somewhere else. I said the spoon down. Do not say that again. She looked at me like she expected anger, not protection. You are not a problem I am solving, I told her. You are my sister. She nodded, but I could tell she did not believe it yet. The first time Briar Glen looked away from her, we were at Kroger. Brenna was standing near the cereal aisle with one hand over her stomach, comparing prices like every dollar had a weight. A woman from Stonebridge Grace Church turned the corner, saw us, saw Brenna's body, and stopped pushing her cart. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the woman turned around and went the other way. Brenna pretended not to notice. I noticed enough for both of us. Aunt Darla came by 2 days later with a white stoneware casserole dish that had a small crack near the handle. She held it in both hands like an offering. Your mother made this, she said. She thought Brenna should eat something warm. Brenna stayed in my bedroom with the door half closed. Darla sat at my kitchen table and looked around my apartment as if shame might be visible in the corners. Has she told you who the father is? No. Does he know? I do not know. Is his family local? Darla, I said. She folded her hands. I am just trying to understand how bad this is. That sentence told me everything. Not how scared Brenna was, not how much help she needed, how bad this looked. When Darla left, I put the casserole in the refrigerator. We never ate it. A few days later, Therese Molina pulled me into the staff break room at the hospital. Therese was a senior nurse, 52, sharp-eyed and not easily shocked. That morning, she looked angry in a quiet way. I left church yesterday, she said. I waited. Pastor Bennett preached about a daughter who mistook shame for freedom. He did not say Brenna's name, but everybody knew. My stomach tightened. Therese unlocked her phone and sent me 2 files. One was audio from the live stream, the other was the church bulletin PDF. The sermon title was Guarding the Household from Disgrace. I listened to it in my car after my shift. Bennett Cates had the kind of voice people trusted before they understood the cost of trusting it. Warm, steady, practiced. He talked about rebellion, consequences, families refusing to bless what would destroy them. Then the live stream camera shifted across the front pew. My mother was sitting there, nodding. I took a screenshot. By the time Brenna reached 33 weeks, I had learned the difference between tired and frightened. Tired was folding laundry at midnight. Frightened was finding Brenna gripping the bathroom counter, pale and dizzy, while the numbers on the blood pressure cuff read 156/96. I drove her to the ER in 14 minutes. The doctor said gestational hypertension, monitoring, rest, no more shifts at the flower shop for now. Less stress, as if stress were a lamp we could unplug. At 9:03 that night, I texted Maris and Leland. Brenna is in the ER. Her blood pressure is high. The baby is being monitored. The message showed red at 9:18. No one answered. That same night, my mother posted a photo of her Bible open on the dining room table. The caption said something about protecting the home from shame. I did not comment. I did not call. I did not throw my phone across the room, although I wanted to. I took a screenshot. Then I made a folder on my phone and named it Brenna. I saved the texts, the voicemail from my mother, the sermon audio, the bulletin, the screenshot from the live stream, the ER paperwork folded in my purse. I did not call it revenge, not then. I only knew that if the day ever came that my sister was strong enough to tell the truth, nobody in that town was going to call her a liar and get away with it. Alice Holloway was born on April 20th, 2023, at 5:38 in the morning, under the kind of hospital light that makes everything look too pale and too honest. Brenna was exhausted, her hair damp at her temples, her voice almost gone. I stood beside her bed at Hawthorne County Medical Center with one hand on her shoulder and the other gripping the rail because I needed something solid to hold. She had not asked for our mother once. That hurt more than if she had. When they placed Ellis against her chest, Brenna made a sound I had never heard from her before. It was not crying. It was not laughing. It was something between relief and disbelief, like she had been holding her breath since November and finally remembered how air worked. He weighed 6 pounds, 9 ounces. He had dark brown hair, a tiny crease between his eyebrows, and eyes that opened just long enough to show a gray-blue color that did not look like anyone on our side of the family. Therese came in after her shift with a pack of diapers and a soft blue knit hat from the hospital gift shop. She did not say anything grand. She just touched Brenna's arm and said, "He is beautiful." Brenna looked at her like the word beautiful had not belonged to anything in her life for months. A little later, paperwork arrived. The question came gently, but it still changed the room. The form needed the father's information if Brenna wanted to provide it. Brenna looked down at Ellis. His tiny fist opened and closed against the blanket. "Leave it blank," she said. I watched the pen move across the paper and stop where a name should have been. Father. Blank. It was just one empty line on a hospital form, but it felt heavier than any shouting my parents had done. That blank space meant someone was missing, someone was being protected, or someone had been kept away. I didn't know which one yet. I texted Maris and Leland before we left the hospital. Brenna had a boy. His name is Ellis. He's healthy. No answer came that morning. No phone call, no flowers, no awkward visit from a father who didn't know how to apologize. 6 hours later, Darla texted me, "Your mother is not ready." I saved it. The months after Ellis came home were not dramatic in the way people expect stories to be dramatic. They were bottles in the sink, burp cloths over every chair, grocery receipts folded into my purse, and Brenna sleeping in 20-minute pieces. I worked, came home, took Ellis so Brenna could shower, and learned how much love could fit into a body that was running on coffee and fear. I bought Alice a yellow blanket from the clearance shelf for $14.99. Brenna said I should not have spent the money. I told her every baby deserved something bought just because someone wanted him to have it. By the end of 2023, my savings had dropped to $2,870. I knew the number because I checked it every Friday night after Ellis fell asleep. Brenna saw me do it once. She stood in the doorway holding a basket of folded onesies, and her face crumpled. "I cannot let you keep paying for my life," she said. "You are not a bill," I told her. "Ellis is not either." She nodded, but this time she did not apologize. In January, she enrolled in CNA classes at Hawthorne Valley Community College. By spring, she was working part-time at Maple Bend Care and Rehab, tired in a new way, but steadier. She came home smelling like hand soap and laundry detergent, with stories about residents who liked her because she listened. Ellis started daycare part-time that May. Lacey Morrell worked in his room, and the first day I dropped him off, Brenna cried in the parking lot and then laughed because she had formula on her shirt. Life did not get easy, it just became ours. Then one afternoon, Mrs. Delia Ortiz, one of my longtime patients, sat across from me during therapy and lowered her voice. "Not everyone believes your mother," she said. I adjusted the strap on her wrist brace and looked up. "People talk," she continued, "but some of us wonder what kind of family preaches grace and doesn't know the birthday of their own child." I didn't know what to say, so I only nodded. It was the first time I realized Maris hadn't controlled the whole town. She had only controlled the version loud enough to reach us. The first real crack in Brenna's silence came that summer. I walked past the kitchen table and saw her laptop open. An email draft sat on the screen for less than a second before she snapped it shut. I only caught the name, Ronan Cates. I knew that name. Everyone at Stonebridge Grace knew that name. Ronan was Pastor Bennett Cates's son, the golden boy who had left Briar Glen for Portland and a structural engineering job at Arc Bridge Infrastructure. His photos used to hang in the church hallway after every scholarship and mission trip. Dark hair, gray-blue eyes, the same crease in between his eyebrows that Ellis had when he was thinking hard about a toy truck. I didn't ask that day. In late September of 2025, I was helping Brenna clear out a stuck drawer when a sealed envelope slipped from behind it and fell to the floor. Her handwriting was on the front. No stamp, no address, just a name. Ronan. I read the first line before I could stop myself. "Dear Ronan, I do not know what your father told you, but I never stopped loving you." I put the letter on the table and waited. When Brenna came home from Maple Bend and saw it, she did not yell. She sat down like her legs had finally given up. "He is Ellis's father," she said. The words did not surprise me as much as they should have. Some part of me knew, since the laptop, since Ellis's eyes, since the message from RC. Brenna told me she and Ronan had loved each other quietly before he left for Portland. Bennett had never approved. He told Brenna that Ronan needed a future without her. He told Ronan that Brenna had moved on. Ronan still used a family phone plan then, and Bennett had access to the recovery email. After Mom and Dad threw Brenna out, she changed her number because she couldn't afford the old plan. She deleted social media after church people started watching her like she was public property. Bennett used every gap. "Why did you not tell him later?" I asked. Brenna covered her face. "Because by then his father had preached about me like I was a disease. Because I thought if Ronan came back, Bennett would make sure everyone believed I trapped him. Because I was scared, Greer." Then she lowered her hands. "But I was wrong. He had a right to know. Ellis had a right to be known." That was the first time she said it without defending herself. I found Ronan on LinkedIn that night. My hands shook while I typed. "My name is Greer Holloway. I am Brenna's sister. There's something you were never told." 2 days passed. Nothing. Then I sent one more message. "It concerns a child." He called within an hour. I told him only what he needed first. Ellis, born April 20th, 2023. Healthy, loved, almost certainly his. For a long time, Ronan said nothing. Then his voice came through low and broken. "I tried to find her." He'd called Bennett for Brenna's new number. Bennett told him she had someone else, that she was pregnant by someone else, and that she didn't want Ronan in his life. He'd emailed, but Brenna had already stopped using that account. "Does he know anything about me?" Ronan asked. "No." He breathed in once, hard. "I'm coming home. I need a few days to get leave from work, hand off a project, fly into Columbus and rent a car, but I am coming." When the call ended, I sat in my dark kitchen with the letter on the table and Ellis's daycare cup drying beside the sink. For nearly 3 years, everyone had acted like Brenna was the only one hiding something. Now, the truth had started moving on its own, and I knew no one was going to be able to fold it back into that envelope again. Ronan came back to Briar Glen in October, 5 days after that call. He did not arrive like a man in a movie, running through an airport with flowers and perfect words. He came tired, pale, and careful, with a carry-on bag in one hand and eyes that kept moving like he was afraid the truth might disappear if he blinked. We met at the little park near the library because Brenna did not want Ellis overwhelmed inside the apartment. I stood near a picnic table with my hands in my coat pockets and let the three of them have the space I had been guarding for almost 3 years. Ellis had a red toy truck in one hand. When Ronan crouched in front of him, Ellis stepped behind Brenna's leg and peeked out. "Hi, buddy," Ronan said softly. Ellis looked at him for a long second, then pressed the truck against Brenna's knee. Ronan's face changed, not in a dramatic way. It was quieter than that. It was the look of a man seeing his own eyes in a child who did not know him. "I am angry," Ronan told Brenna, "but I am here." Brenna nodded. Her fingers were white around Ellis's coat. "You have every right to be angry. I do not know how to forgive this yet," Ronan said. "I know," Brenna said. "I do not expect you to." That was the first thing she said right. She did not explain. She did not hide behind Bennett or fear or shame. She let Ronan's anger exist without trying to make it smaller. A week later, Mallory Keene walked them through the parts nobody talks about in family stories because paperwork does not look like healing from the outside. Voluntary DNA test, voluntary acknowledgement of paternity, daycare contribution, a parenting schedule that started slowly because Ellis was still too young to understand why a stranger with his chin suddenly wanted to be there every Saturday. In November, the test confirmed what all of us already knew. In December, Ronan signed the acknowledgement. He did not post a picture. He did not make a speech. He started showing up. He learned Ellis liked cheddar crackers, but not string cheese. He learned that Ellis called him Ronan, not Dad. That mattered to me more than tears. Around the same time, I started the FHA loan paperwork on a small house near the edge of Briar Glen. By February 2026, I closed on it with a 3.5% down payment and more fear than confidence. The kitchen cabinets were old. The chain link fence leaned near the back corner. The living room was small enough that the couch almost touched the toy shelf, but it had a yard. Ellis ran across that patchy grass the first day we brought boxes in, and I knew I had bought the right kind of imperfect. Ronan's return did not stay quiet for long. Briar Glen was the kind of town where people could miss a child being born, but not a familiar man standing beside one in the cereal aisle. Darla saw us at Kroger in March. Ronan was holding Ellis while I reached for applesauce pouches. 2 days later, Maris called. "Your father and I should be invited to Ellis's birthday," she said. "Why now?" "Because we are family, Greer." I looked at Ellis coloring on the floor with a green crayon in his fist. "What were you for the last 3 years?" She did not answer. Darla answered without meaning to a week later. She told me people at Stonebridge Grace had started asking Leland why his grandson had never been in the Christmas program and why the little boy looked so much like a Kate's. That was when I understood Maris and Leland were not coming back because their hearts had broken open. They were coming back because the story had started leaking through the walls. Ronan also told me Colette Cates had been asking questions. After he left for Portland, she had asked Bennett about Brenham more than once, but Bennett always changed the subject. Lately, he had been restless whenever Ronan came home. He deleted call logs. He avoided saying Brenna's name. Colette did not know the truth yet, but she could smell a lie inside her own house. Ellis turned 3 on April 20th, 2026. We had the party in my backyard. Construction truck tablecloths, cupcakes, lemonade, cheese cubes, a rented bounce house that sagged a little on one side. Therese came early and helped tape balloons to the fence. Lacey kept the daycare kids near the lawn toys. Mrs. Ortiz sat in a folding chair with a sweater over her shoulders, watching everything like she had waited years to see which way the room would turn. Maris arrived in a cream cardigan with a casserole dish, almost identical to the one Darla had brought years before. Leland carried a gift so large, Ellis hid behind when Brenna sighed. "There is our little man," Maris said. Ellis turned toward Brenna and reached for her hand. Then Ronan came through the side gate. Ellis saw him and ran forward with his toy truck lifted like an offering. "Ronan!" he called. Maris froze. Leland's face emptied. Brenna picked Ellis up. then looked at our parents without lowering her eyes. "This is Ronan Cates, Ellis's father." Maris put one hand on the casserole dish. "We did not know." "No," I said. "You did not ask." Her eyes snapped to me. I kept my voice even. "If you had known the father was Pastor Bennett's son, would you have opened the door again that night? And if the answer is yes, was Brenna your daughter, or was she only acceptable when the name attached to her baby looked good at church?" Leland stepped forward. "This is family business. We should speak privately." Brenna turned to him. "I had Ellis in a hospital room without you. I took him to checkups without you. Greer texted you in the ER when my blood pressure was high, and you read it. Now you do not get to call it private just because people can hear you." Nobody moved. Then Pastor Bennett came through the gate in a navy blazer, looking less like a party guest than a man arriving to manage damage. "Ronan, this is not the place," Bennett said. Ronan stood with Ellis's truck in his hand. "It is my son's birthday. That makes it exactly the place." Bennett's mouth tightened. "You are being led by emotion." Ronan looked at him. "Is that what you called it when you told me she had moved on?" The yard went still. I took out my phone and played only 12 seconds of the sermon. Bennett's voice filled my backyard, warm and practiced, talking about a daughter who mistook shame for freedom. Therese spoke from beside the fence. I was there. Everyone knew who he meant. Ronan faced his father. "You told me Brenna had someone else. You told me she did not want me. You kept me from my son." Bennett looked past him, and for the first time I saw that he was searching for an audience instead of an answer. Colette stepped through the gate behind him. "You told me she broke his heart," she said. "Did you ever tell me you helped break it?" Bennett's face changed. "I was protecting his future." "You took my right to be a father," Ronan said. Brenna held Ellis closer, then spoke. "I was wrong not to tell Ronan. He has every right to be angry with me. But my mistake does not erase what you did to me, what you said from that pulpit, or the messages my parents read and ignored. Ellis is not proof that anybody wins. He is a child. Nobody gets to use him to fix their image." No one clapped. No one shouted. Lacey guided the children back toward the bounce house. Maris's casserole sat unopened on the table. Bennett walked out through the side gate alone. Colette did not follow him. A few minutes later, Ellis pulled Ronan to the cake by the sleeve. Brenna stood beside them while we sang. I stood behind my sister, watching 3 candles shake in the wind. The truth had not healed everything, but it had finally taken a seat at the table, and no one could pretend it did not belong there anymore. The birthday did not end with shouting. It ended the way most real family disasters do, with children asking for more cupcakes while adults stood around pretending their hands were busy. Ellis had frosting on his shirt and a blue smear across one cheek. Ronan crouched in front of him with a napkin, trying to wipe it off without making Ellis pull away. He was awkward about it, too gentle, like he was afraid one wrong move would remind everyone how new he still was. "Hold still, buddy," Ronan said. Ellis laughed and twisted towards Brenna. Watching them hurt in a way I did not expect. It was beautiful, but it was also late. That kind of late does not disappear just because the truth finally arrives. Ellis stood by the food table. Her casserole was still covered. No one had lifted the lid. She kept one hand on the edge of the dish, like if she let go, the whole afternoon becomes something she could not survive. After a few minutes, she walked to Brenna. "May I hold him?" Brenna looked at me first, then at Ronan. Ronan did not answer for her. That mattered. "Only if Ellis wants to," Brenna said. Maris reached for him carefully. Ellis let him take him, but his body stayed stiff. She held him like a child from a framed picture, not like a little boy who had juice on his sleeve and crumbs in his fist. For a few seconds, she looked almost peaceful. Then Ellis turned his face towards Brenna. "Mommy." That was all he said. Brenna took him back. Maris did not argue. Her eyes turned red, but she did not get to make that moment about her. That was the first consequence she could not explain away. She had not been kept from her grandson. She had chosen not to know him. Leland found me near the leaning chain-link fence, where the balloons kept knocking against the metal in the wind. "I didn't know how to fix it," he said. His voice sounded smaller than it had at the dining room table 3 years earlier. "You did not have to know how to fix everything. You only had to not stand there while your daughter was pushed out of the house." He looked down at the grass. "I thought if I stayed quiet, it would calm down." "No, it just taught everyone that Mom could do it again." He did not answer. For once, his silence did not feel powerful. It felt empty. Colette stayed after Bennett left. She did not follow him through the gate. She stood near Brenna with both hands wrapped around a paper cup of lemonade. "I do not want to assume anything," she said, "but if you allow it, I would like to send Ellis a birthday card." Brenna studied her for a moment. "You can send one." Colette nodded. She did not call herself Grandma. She did not ask to hold him. She did not say she had been hurt too. She understood that the first step back into a child's life was not a claim, it was permission. The weeks after the party were quiet, but not empty. Deacon Paul Henley and the elders at Stonebridge Grace asked Bennett to step away while they reviewed his conduct. Nobody called it a scandal in public. They used words like discernment and accountability, but everyone understood that Bennett had lost the pulpit, at least for a while, and that was the place he had used to make Brenna small. Maris stepped down from women's outreach. She told people she needed to focus on family. Maybe that was partly true. Maybe it was the only sentence she could say without admitting that she had chosen the church before her daughter. Leyland stopped sitting in the front pew for a while. Darla stopped calling with updates no one asked for. People had started watching the watchers. Ronan kept showing up. That was the part I respected most. He did not try to fix 3 missing years with one dramatic apology. He came on schedule, he paid his share of daycare, he learned that Ellis liked cheddar crackers but hated string cheese. He learned that when Ellis got tired, he did not want to be reasoned with. He wanted someone to sit on the floor and build the same block tower 6 times. He and Brynja started counseling. They were not suddenly fine. She was still carrying years of fear. He was still carrying years he could never get back. But they sat in the same room and told the truth, which was more than most of the adults in our family had done. Mallory Keene helped them finish the paternity paperwork. The birth certificate amendment was filed the proper way. I remember Brynja holding the receipt from the clerk's office and staring at it in my kitchen. "It does not erase the blank line," she said. "No," I told her, "but Ellis will not have to carry it." Colette began visiting every other Saturday. The first time, she brought picture books instead of expensive toys. She asked Brynja before hugging Ellis. She did not mention Bennett unless Ronan did first. She never made her grief the center of the room. At the beginning of May, Leyland sent Brynja a handwritten letter. It was short. He wrote that he had been wrong to stay silent and wrong to let Maris call that silence keeping peace. He did not ask to see Ellis. He did not ask for forgiveness. Brynja folded the letter and put it in a drawer. "You do not have to answer," I told her. "I know," she said. "I think that is why I can breathe." Maris sent a longer message. Some of it still slipped away from responsibility. We did not know everything. We were overwhelmed. We were afraid. But one sentence sat there like the first honest thing she had written in years. "I chose the church before I chose you." Brynja saved the message. She did not reply. Healing is not running back to someone because they finally found one true sentence. It is learning you are allowed to wait. I started getting pieces of my own life back too. Drew changed my schedule, so I was not living on leftover coffee and late shifts. I did not take the Columbus position, but I stopped feeling like my future had been packed away with Ellis's baby bottles. When Marnie Sloan asked if I wanted dinner sometime, I did not say yes, but I did not say no right away either. One Saturday morning in early May, I cleaned out the cabinet above my stove and found the old white casserole dish Darla had brought in 2022. The crack near the handle was still there. I stood with it in my hands and remembered the rain on Brenna's coat, the silver bracelet on my mother's counter, Bennett's voice coming through my car speakers, the blank line on Ellis's birth certificate, and Maris standing beside a dish nobody opened. I did not break it. I washed it, dried it, set it in the donation box by the back door. Some things do not need to be destroyed to lose their power. They just need to stop being kept. On the refrigerator, Ellis had taped a drawing in green and yellow crayon. There was Brino, Ronan, me, Colette, Therese, a small house with a crooked fence. Ellis had drawn himself in the middle, taller than everyone else. Maris was not in it. Leland was not in it. Brenna looked at the picture for a long time. "Maybe someday," she said. "When someday is safe," I told her. Ellis called from the yard then, asking someone to look at his digger. Brenna went first. Ronan followed. I stood in the kitchen for one more second, listening to the back door swing open. I did not save the family I was born into, but I kept a door open when my sister had nowhere else to go. And sometimes, family is not the person who gives you a bracelet and takes it back when you disappoint them. Sometimes family is the person who hands you a dry towel when the whole world leaves you standing in the rain. If you have ever had to become family for someone who was abandoned by their own, leave a comment so they know they are not alone. And if stories about truth, boundaries, and quiet justice matter to you, stay with this channel.